Alrighty, friends. So we are diving in. Thank you so much for being here. I was sharing earlier when we were kind of waiting and having people hop on the call that I'm super excited to be talking about burnout. It's something that I feel like is super important and it's just not going away. One of the things that really kind of led me to delve into this topic is I am a personal trainer, I'm a nutrition coach, I do other coaching, I work in the community, do lots of things. And one of the struggles that I was finding with my nutrition clients is they just don't have the time. They would literally say, well, I can't track my food and I can't get a walk in and I can't drink my water because I'm literally out of gas and out of time with my days. Actually, I got a message the other day from someone who was like, look, I work 8 hours and I don't even get a water break. Like I can't get my water in because of this. Or, I know other moms who are just literally like chasing toddlers around all day long and they're not taking care of themselves. And so I thought, well, the root of the issue here is that we have, we're trying to hit fit 36 hours into 24 hours a day and we are all completely fried. So really what I wanted to do is if I want to help people get healthy, I wanted to help them find a way to overcome, this burnout, this scheduling, this overwhelmed life. And so I wanted to create a way for you to find out, like, am I even burnout or am I just tired? So this is something that I shared recently, and I just wanted to go through this real quick before we delve into the personality assessment, because I think it's a kind of a good overview of like what is burnout. I think it's one of those terms that can kind of get thrown around loosely. And, I'm sure we've all felt quote unquote burnout at some point, but what does that even actually mean? So burnout technically is like prolonged stress. It's not just like, oh, I'm tired one day. It's this feeling of disconnection, overwhelm, fatigue that you just can't shape, and it's due to chronic stress. So it's not like oh, I had a busy week or I had a busy month and now I'm good. It's this long-term effect, and it's almost like it gets heavier and heavier and heavier to the point where people feel like they just can't carry it anymore, or they don't know how to get out of it. It's like almost falling down to a pit and you're trying to get out and you see no way, and that's no place that we want to be in. So here are quick things you may not know about burnout. It can happen to anyone. I think sometimes we'll think of um professionals who are in, crazy seasons. Like I think of accountants who have a serious, few months of lots and lots of work, or healthcare providers, or lawyers, or people, military members that they have these high intense jobs that you think, oh yeah, I can see how that can lead to burning out. Our teachers, I mean, gosh, that's a huge one. But then you can also think, stay-at-home parents, or even people who are caring for elderly parents. Like that is a lot. And so really it can happen to anyone. It's not just one category. It's not always work related. That's number two. It can be anything. It could be even burnt out on things that you once enjoyed that were like passion projects. I can think of even people I know who were fitness trainers and they started teaching fitness classes. Then all of a sudden they're teaching 30 classes a week. Well, that can definitely take something that you enjoy, that you're passionate about, that, you really feel is your calling, and burn you out. And this is another reason that I kind of thought I really need to unpack this, is because I was in a training call and someone said, well, if you're really doing something you love, you're not burnt out, you're tired. And I'm like, I don't actually think that's true, because you could be to do something you absolutely love and be completely burnt out. So it's not always work related. Number three is sometimes it goes unnoticed. We chalk it up to, oh, I just need a little bit more rest, or it's a busy season, and we kind of dismiss it. It's easy to kind of swipe it under the rug and be like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. And then all of a sudden you're like to the point where like, oh, it's definitely not fine. Um, Yes, for sure. So number four, it's more than just stress. So like I was saying earlier, it's chronic. It's not just temporary, it's long term. And you can be tired. I mean, there's definitely seasons of life where you're tired. You're doing a lot of output, but this is that almost feeling of being like tired to your bones. That's one thing. My husband was a military chaplain, and he was, at times when he was deployed, he's like, you're just so tired that like your insides ache. That's kind of how that far side of burnout. But then it's not forever. So this is what we're going to talk about today is where do you fall on that spectrum and realizing, wherever you are, beginning or end, what we're going to talk about, there isn't this ability to move through because it does affect you. Number six, it affects your body. It affects your immune system. I had a friend message me the other day. She's like, well, I had to go to the ER because I was having heart palpitations because her life is so crazy full that she is at that point physically that she cannot manage it. And I think we all probably know someone like that or have been in that situation by ourselves. And, that's no place to be. And I think, some of this is preventable. That's what we're going to talk about. Some of it's not. Like if you're caring for an elderly parent, there's really no way around that. You just have to get through. But there are things I think we are putting into our lives or things that we are kind of doing to ourselves that are contributing to burnout. And we're going to talk about that. So self-care is definitely helpful. That's number seven. People are like, oh, just take a break, just get a massage, go for a walk here or there. Yeah, that's a great like little band-aid, but it's not really solving the issue of why is this stress chronic and what can we do to change our situations, our lives, our habits, our self-care, our boundaries, all the pieces that we're going to talk about to really get to that point where you're not constantly, fried and then trying to get a massage, right? Because it can, like we talked about, number eight, affect long-term health. So you think high blood pressure, depression, heart disease, that those high cortisol levels that affect our body, that affects our sleep, which then affects everything. And again, number nine, it's not just about doing less. Like that's what I think people think, oh, well, just cut something off of your calendar or take a week off. Because guess what? You can go on vacation for a week and come back to an absolutely crazy life again. You just had a break from it from a week, right? But the good news of this all is that recovery and management, it's more like burnout management is something that we can work through. So we're going to talk about today, what is your burnout personality type? So when I started thinking about burnout and I really wanted to create a course and some resources to help my clients manage their burnout so that they can manage their health, I thought, well, how do people know if they're actually burnt out or not? And so, of course, I thought about, I even made like a Google survey. It's like, click this if you feel this way and tally up your points. And I thought, that's great. But first of all, people who are burnout don't need another quiz. And you know how that is. You can kind of pick what the answers are supposed to be, or you can kind of like read right through it. So I thought, well, let's find a fun way that we can find out where do you fall on this spectrum of burnout. And so I decided to come up with, five personalities, and we're going to talk about each one of these ladies. Again, this definitely applies to men, for sure. But again, the primary the people that I help are mostly women around my age. And so I wanted to make something that was super relatable to that. And so we have our five personalities, right? We have calm Cathy, we have juggling Jenny, we have stressed Sarah, worn out Wendy, and burnout Betty. And we're going to go through each of their stories, a little bit of like what their life is, what their mindset is, and also some things that then we can help each of these individuals. So what I want you to do while you're listening is think, which of these people do I see myself in? And it might be little pieces. You might feel a little bit, I feel like I'm kind of between a juggling Jenny and the stress out there. Or you might be like, nope, I am full out Betty. I'm all the way to the right. And then again, we're going to talk about what each of these personalities can do. So you might pick up little tips from, one or the other that you can take away to help today. So first, you are going to also get a complete printout of all of these. So if, this moves pretty fast, or you're like, what was that again? Or I'd really like to write down all the tips. You don't have to worry about, taking notes. You kind of just take it all in and you will get a full copy of this. So our first personality is calm Cathy. So she's in that energize and balance. That's the stage that she's in. She's got her life in balance. She's managing her stress. She's prioritizing her self-care. She's got her boundaries. She feels refreshed. She feels connected, and she has stress. So the idea that, we're not going to ever live a stress-less life. Like stress is part of existence. If you have no stress, you're dead, right? Like, and it's good stress. There's good stress and there's stress. And so we're never going to be completely out of stress. And so that's where when you can recognize the good stresses and the bad stress, how it affects our body, how it affects our mind, when did it get to that point of overwhelm? then you can kind of catch it before you project on to this path. So this is kind of, I don't want to say the goal because everyone's life is going to be different. And, some people will tolerate different levels of burnout or stress in their lives. So it's not saying like, oh, everyone's got to be a calm Cathy, but this is like, for me, people, they're just very even. They have a lot going on, but they're just pretty chill about it. Like they've got it handled. That would be the calm Cathys in our lives. Her motto is, I've got this. Life is busy, but I'm grounded. I'm doing the deeds and I am like good to go. So our next personality is juggling Jenny. So this, I literally thought of like juggling children and work and household and all the things, all the good things and the crazy things. So Jenny's got a lot on her plate, but she's managing it barely, right? She's starting to feel the weight of juggling work, family, personal responsibilities. She finds it hard to carve time out for herself, and she's noticing a little bit of stress creeping in. So her motto, I'm keeping all the balls in the air, but it's starting to feel heavy. So I think we've all been at this point where you're like, all of a sudden life ticks up, you got a lot going on, but you're managing. You're like, okay, I got my calendar, I've got things going on. I feel like I am equipped to handle what life is giving me. That's one of the things. It's like we have this capacity for what life brings us. And sometimes, we have this capacity and we're not using it all. We have white space is what I like to call it. If you think about your calendar and you look at a blank piece of your calendar before you put anything on it, it's all white. Then you fill in all these things. You're like, okay, I have enough time to get through what I need to. And there's still a little white space. That's what I would, imagine juggling Jenny. She's got some stuff going on. She's got to prioritize. She's, managing the things, but there's still a little space in there. She's not to the point where she cannot handle it, but it is starting to feel a little bit chaotic. Okay. Next one is stress Sarah. So Sarah's starting to feel the pressure. I love the descriptions of these, right? Responsibilities are piling up. She's having a harder time saying focus and calm. So this is where I would almost picture that day planner where if you ever look at some people's day planner and they're like full, I mean, they might be color coded and have stickers and be super cute, but there's no white space. Stress Sarah probably has no white space. Her stress levels are consistently high and she's using all of her capacity. So this is where, sometimes when you have a lot of day, and even if, say she's trying to fit 26 hours in a 24-hour day, like, okay, I kind of got this, but you start becoming snippy. I don't know if you've ever had a day that's super full. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not drinking your water. You're not getting your walks in because you've squeezed that part out. You start getting snippy. I mean, to be honest, we get snippy when we are feeling overwhelmed, and that's a reaction because we're out of patience because we're out of gas. So Sarah's motto is she's overwhelmed and running on empty, but she's pushing through. I think this is the motto of probably the majority of women that I know. Like, well, we're just getting by, we're doing the things, right? We're pushing through. And the point is like they're pushing through. They're not walking, they're not managing, they're pushing. And so what the difference between, walking up a hill and pushing a box up a hill, there's a lot of extra effort. So I think sometimes when our lives get this stressed, it's requiring even more effort because we're literally having to push through each day. All right. Worn out Wendy, approaching burnout. So Wendy's exhausted. She can't seem to recover. This is when you get a full night's sleep and you wake up and you're like, I'm still tired. It's you take a vacation, you come back more tired than when you left. And this is where you really start to lose that sense of joy. So Wendy's lost her sense of joy and activities she used to love. She feels emotionally detached. She's going through the motions, but her enthusiasm is gone. So her motto, I'm drained and I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. This is, I think, a lot of times the breaking point for people where they're like, something has got to give. Stress out Sarah can like really keep pushing. She's going, but it gets to that point where like, okay, I can't push anymore. I can't. Like literally, I can hear my friends' voices in my head saying, I just can't do this anymore. And I've actually been there in this situation where, I lost the joy in some things I was doing and I could feel it. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And the sad part is sometimes it's things that you actually love or are very good at or very impactful. It's not, again, stuff that like, oh, well, it's because you haven't found your passion. You can be very passionate about things and be completely worn out doing them because you emotionally detached because you're out of space. Like now, if you think about that planner, It's not that there's no white space. It's like things are now stacked on top of each other. You have double appointments, there's no time for you. There's no time for, those quality relationships. You're worn out and definitely approaching that burnout. Okay, so last stage, Burnout Betty, she has hit the wall. And this is where like, I mean, I just my heart goes out because I can think of specific friends in mind that I know who have been here. And it is just it feels the best word here, I'll just read it, is even the smallest tasks feel monumental, right? Your body and your mind are just screaming for a break. Betty's totally disconnected from her work, from her family, for herself. She needs a reset. Okay. For sure. It's like when you're just like, I just can't. I just can't. Like that's the best word that I can say or come up with because I've heard my friends say this that they're just completely burnt out. And the problem with this is it's such a space of depletion that it feels very isolating. So one of the things we're going to talk about in our kind of our suggestions for each of these personalities, and then in the Burnout to Bliss course that I have, is that need for social support and bringing your burnout to light. I think a lot of times people are ashamed that they can't. They feel like, oh well, if I was organized enough or if I was smart enough or if I was fit enough or if I did this or I did that, I wouldn't feel this way. The problem is not you a lot of times. That's the thing. I will say this over and over again throughout our call is there's nothing wrong with you. Like if you are in this space, it's nothing wrong with you. It's just your life is situated in a way it's not sustainable. Okay. So think about where you think you fall, anywhere from Calm Cathy, through Stress Sarah, all the way to Burnout Betty, where you think you are. And then almost like where you think you would like to move toward. Now, if you're in full Burnout Betty, you want to be Calm Cathy, that's not going to happen overnight. Part of the, things that we're going to talk about is a lot of these suggestions that I'm going to give you guys today, depending on where you feel like you fall, are the short-term fix. And we want to pile those short-term fixes onto long-term solutions because guess what? A short-term fix can be helpful. I mean, if you cut your finger and you put a little Band-Aid on it, that's helpful. But again, we have to find out why do we keep getting cut over and over again? That's the bigger picture. So it's not going to be quick or easy. It's definitely going to take some, I think, reflection. Why do I feel this way? What can I do to change it? What can't I do? What can't I control? And we're going to walk through all that. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So here's your action plan. If you feel like you align mostly with Calm Cathy, you're rocking and rolling. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep prioritizing the activities that keep you balanced, like exercise, sleep, self-care. We do have that self-care quick guide in our resources. If you need that, let me know. I can send you the link for that. But that's again another way to kind of have those short-term solutions. And how do you prevent moving along that spectrum? Staying mindful of stress levels, because just because you're a Calm Cathy this month doesn't mean you're not going to be a juggling Jenny next month, depending on, especially coming into the holidays. So being mindful of stress levels, continue to set boundaries. And again, it's easier to prevent burnout when you're ahead of it. Reflection, periodically reflect on your workload, your emotional well-being to ensure that you stay on track. So if you're like in a space, you're like, yeah, I'm doing good. I think the self-awareness piece is huge. Like, why do I feel this way right now? What do I have in place right now that is making me feel good? And so then if certain things start to creep in, then like, okay, here's how I felt then, here's how I can get back there. So I am going to be sharing the Burnout to Bliss course at the end. But with each of these personalities, I'm going to share like, is this the right time for you to think about taking that course? So Calm Cathy, it's not absolutely necessary. Like she's doing good. She might benefit from the self-care guide just to make sure that she's staying on track, but it's not like she's in that red zone. All right. So juggling Jenny, those early signs of overwhelm, action plan for her, time management. So this is what we're talking about, that calendar where you are juggling a lot of things. I think a lot of times we're overwhelmed because we're not managing all the tasks and we're definitely not or if we're trying to manage them in our head. Putting things on paper can be very freeing because if you're trying to remember, oh, I need to grab this and I need to do that and I need to go here, all in your head, it's like this open tab that can be very depleting and very exhausting. So my huge tip is write it down, right? To manage your time, planning out your week, Make sure you're planning in self-care. Again, that self-care guide will give you tons of ideas, but it can be everything from going for a daily walk. I know we always think of like, oh, manicures and pedicures, which are great. If that's something that is life-giving to you, fit it in. But I feel like those are the good sometimes, unless you are in a place where you can get a massage every week, go for it. But I'm more lean into those daily self-care habits because I feel like we need them daily. I mean, we're depleting ourselves daily, so we need to be able to refill. And the one thing I really want you to remember is self-care. You know, we've heard that term for years now. And I never really thought about it's like it's caring for yourself. You know, you're not going to let your kid go out without a jacket. You're not going to let your family, starve and not ever have food in the house. You know, you're not going to, never walk your dogs because they need exercise. But for us, we will not take care of ourselves, not, drink our water, not take ourselves for a walk, because we feel like we can pour into everyone else and not ourselves. It's caring for yourself. Okay. Say no more often. There's a full bonus workbook in the course about how to set boundaries with actually words to use. If you have a struggle with setting boundaries, that would be super helpful. And then maybe identify one thing on your plate that you can delegate or postpone. I think when you do kind of look at your time management, when you're juggling a lot, think like, what if this is absolutely necessary, and what could I cut out? Because I think, again, just creating more white space can be so freeing. And then don't refill it up, and definitely don't fill it up with scrolling social media. That's one thing, is when I was saying, there are things in our lives that we can control, and some of the things that we can't, right? And one of the things we can control is our constant self-overwhelm that we are using our phones, our electronics, not having any silence in your day, not having any white space, not having any time to reflect and quiet because we're picking up our phone. I mean, if you look at people who are waiting in line, or like, say you like took a bus or a train, no one is just like looking out the window. Everyone is staring at the phone. And so it's like having more of that in your life could be helpful. Okay. So stress check and implement a daily stress check ritual. Again, I love this idea of at the beginning of the day, okay, I'm feeling it, I'm good. At the end of the day, okay, today, how did today go? Okay, today was good, I'm good. And then another day, like, oh, today was a little rocky. And then thinking like, why? What was the difference? And sometimes, again, some things you can't control, some things you can't, but I think having that awareness is huge. So, Burnout to Bliss recommendation, in taking the course, you're going to learn a lot of the tools to juggle life. Like I said, sometimes we have seasons that there's a lot in there. So you're going to learn about all the self-care. You're going to learn about the boundary settings. There is a whole mindfulness journaling challenge. So to kind of foster that reflection would be helpful as well. So stress Sarah, she is at that heightened stress stage. So immediate stress relief, definitely prioritize stress reducing activities. So that can be meditation, that can be walk, that can be a social media detox. And again, I always like to say these are things that are personal to you. So I know some friends that might like to draw, that's very stress relieving, or color. And then there's other people who like, no, that's stressful for me because I want it to be perfect, or I'm not very good at drawing. So it's what is a stress reliever for you personally? And that, again, sometimes just takes reflection of knowing what is life-giving and not what is energy sucking. So reclaiming your energy, your schedule time each day for activities that re-energize you. Again, it's how to reduce stress. How do we refill our energy? Take a hard look at your commitments. What can be scaled back? What can be postponed? Creating more space. So if you are in the red line and it's starting to really affect your stress levels, your health, this is not an option, right? And, I think sometimes we think of like, well, when we get the flu, you will literally lay on the couch for like 2 days. And guess what? Everything survives. Now, you can't lay on the couch for the rest of your life, but it makes you wonder like, okay, how much of this is absolutely necessary in my life? And what can I either delay, postpone, give up, delegate? And one of the things with delegation is like, if you ask someone to help, a lot of times it's one, helpful for you, absolutely, but it makes them feel good. So, if you ask a friend like, hey, I really could use help with this, sometimes it's like, oh, they'd be happy to help, and it will make them feel good that they're helping you as well. So Burnout to Bliss, definitely I would recommend it. Again, there's just so many good resources in there that can help manage the stress and bring down some of that overwhelm, and then also re-energize. All right, worn out Wendy, approaching burnout. So, recovery mode, start prioritizing rest, downtime above everything. This is when, if you don't stop, your body's going to stop you, right? You're going to get sick. You're going to have, I almost think of like our toddler. Whenever she grows, she gets really wobbly, and it's like her body doesn't know what it's doing. And so I feel like sometimes this is where you'll see people like, I twisted my ankle because I wasn't paying attention, because I was rushing out the door, because I was, late for a meeting. It's like life will slow you down if you don't slow down. So you really like, this is not optional at this point. This like definitely need to start, prioritizing your rest and your downtime, take a break from demanding activities. If you have to delegate, again, really reach out to people and ask for help, or just like start slashing things that are not absolutely necessary in your day, because it's going to affect your health and you don't want to end up in the ER, right? It's really time to evaluate what aspects of your life are contributing to burnout and really focusing on that emotional, physical, and mental well-being, right? So again, Burnout to Bliss, I think would be super helpful at this stage. Burnout Betty, she's at the end of our spectrum. She's completely done. This is where I would really recommend, taking that 10,000 foot view and looking at what is contributing to all this. Is like that next level of like, is this others imposed? Is this self-imposed? Is this in society? Is this cultural? Is this, my current situation? Is this temporary? Or is there something that I can change? And definitely, I'm a coach. I have, credentials, but I am not a therapist. I'm a huge advocate. So this might be the point where you're like, okay, I really need to talk to someone, a counselor, a therapist, even seeking out your doctor if you are dealing with that, depression, anxiety, because this is the point where I think a lot of times people break. And unfortunately, I have had friends whose like parents have ended up like in the hospital, for substantial time, because the longer you let this go, the longer it's going to take to heal from it, right? So again, rebuilding slowly. It's not just about taking like a day off and then jumping right back into the craziness. You really need to, heal and rest. And one of the, I would definitely recommend doing the Burnout to Bliss. If you're in the red line, just do it. It will be so helpful. But one of the things that I will share in the course is part of my testimony was, I was in one season of my life literally doing everything, like absolutely everything. I was volunteering and I was teaching and I was momming and I was working part-time. And I didn't really realize how far in the red I was, because again, I enjoyed it all. I was kind of managing it. I was definitely like starting to feel it physically. This is like such a random example, but my face would start to twitch, like my eyelid or like my upper cheek. And I was like Googling, like, why is my face twitching? This is so weird. And it's like, oh, it's stressful. It's stress related. I'm like, I don't feel stressed, right? Because I was just like, I was full out go mode. And what happened was we got 2 weeks notice that we were moving. So in 2 weeks notice, we moved across the country. And guess what? All those things that I was totally poured into and doing, they just ended. And it was a huge blessing in disguise, because it allowed me to reset, recharge, revector, and go like, wow, I was really in the red. So sometimes you can't even see it when we're in it. And I think that's one of the things that the benefit to doing the Burnout to Bliss courses, it will help you get deep and reflect on some of these things. Okay, so next steps, this is kind of just the end, like wrapping it up, like, reminding you that this is not permanent. You can definitely move along the spectrum with help, with tools, with resources. And this is what I'm talking about. So you're going to get this full printout of all these tips, all the suggestions for each of the personalities. So those are kind of our short term, like, okay, if you're in this situation, this is what I would recommend right now. Long term, so the Burnout to Bliss course, this is kind of what it includes: sustainable self-care, maintaining healthy boundaries, rediscovering joy and passion, ongoing stress management. So this is what we can do long term, and then designing that blissful life. So it's burnout to bliss. It's like coming from that. I always kind of think of it as the valley to that mountaintop for the long term. Again, like, it's not like we're not going to have stress in our lives, but I feel like we'll be better equipped the more aware we are and the better resources that we have. So what's included in the course is, 6 workshops on each of those topics, the tools that I've shared, being part of an online group of other people who are also working through the journey to find that support. Because again, I think the more we hide it, the bigger it feels. And when you can kind of bring it out into the light, that's a term from Brene Brown. When we carry shame and we hide it, it grows, but when we can bring it out into light, it just dissipates, right? So here are some of the bonuses that come with the course. You get the quick start guide to self-care, you get the 30-day mindfulness journal, you get the mastering boundaries workshop. And the cool thing about that is it literally has words in it. Like if you were dealing with your work partner, here's words that you can say. And I was like, this is such a great resource because I feel like sometimes we just don't know what to say. We know we need a boundary, but we don't know how to say it that we don't want to come off pushy. But anyway, that's a whole deep thing that we'll go into there. So if you are interested in, joining the Burnout to Bliss course, hopping in, it's only $47. And I'm like, one of the things I really wanted to make it so it was very approachable, that you would get way more resources than you can that was way more valuable than what you're getting. Does that make sense? Like I wanted to be like, okay, I'm getting a lot for this and it's going to be helpful for the long term. So if you want, I'm going to send the link with, all the course information, how to get signed up, everything that's included. Oh, and I forgot, there is actually another bonus. I'm going to go back because I don't want to give it away yet. That I created in the middle of basically filming the course. It's a values workbook, because one of the things is when we find like we are living in our most blissful life when we're living in alignment with our values. So there's a whole workbook on how to determine what your values are and then also how to align your life to it. So I need to put that back in here as one of the bonuses, but that will definitely be included too, which was just kind of like an add-on that was, as I was teaching this and creating, and I was like, okay, this is something we need. And if when you take this, if you find you're like, hey, I really need more of this or more or less of this, I always love feedback. So one thing I want to remind you at the end of the day is there's nothing wrong with you. If you are struggling in this season or you've struggled in the season in the past, or you want to prevent, that struggle in the future, it's not anything that's wrong with you. You're not alone. I think it's like 80% of people feel burnout at some point in their life. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean your fails. It just means that your mind and your body are sending you a message that it's time to pause, reclaim your energy, reconnect with yourself, and move into that blissful life. So if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. And so excited to share all this with you.